Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. I want to film a quick intro of a vlog where I don't know if it will ever see the light of day because I want to start the Emily Wilde series. This is a trilogy of kind of romancy fantasy books, and if you know me, I'm not really into the romancy books, so this might go terribly wrong. But my library currently has all three books, and I've just been so intrigued. So this might happen, this might not happen, we'll see. Or maybe you won't see. It's gonna be a big surprise. Now, in this series, we are following a woman called Emily Wilde, who is a researcher investigating fairies. And in the beginning of the first book, she's traveling to this like really out of the way, snowy, icy countryside that reads similar to Iceland. And she's there to investigate a kind of fairy that so far people haven't really investigated and researched. So she is trying to be the first one. However, Emily Wilde does have some issues with talking to people, and she is not a very like social person. And so very soon she finds herself kind of at odds with the local people there, but she will need their help. And then I think at some point that I have not reached yet, her academic rival and only friend, what's his name, Wendell, probably something like that, will also arrive at the island. And I think this is a little bit of a kind of like rivals to lovers situation. Emily also suspects that Wendell isn't quite human. So yeah, we'll see. If I like the first book, I'll continue on with it. Usually with my series reading vlogs, I know from the start that I will read the whole series. With this one, it's going to be a bit more of a we'll see, because I haven't bought these, so I can always like opt out if I don't enjoy these books. But I have started the first one last night, and so far it's not terrible. So we'll see. I'll keep you updated. Hi, I am currently in Mallorca. I'm also currently halfway through my book. What's it called? Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries. And I wanted to give you a quick update so I can continue reading it tonight. And so far, I'm having a good time with this book. I think that again, this is a bit of a weird time for me to read this because I'm currently on sabbatical from my academic career, and yet I do pick up books about academics. Why am I doing this? Nobody knows. But in this one, we do have this science about the fairies, and this definitely has much more field work than my research does. That is one thing that I've always struggled with a little bit. That, yeah, the kind of research I do, you always do just from an office with a computer, like boring stuff, you know? So Emily Wilde is definitely having a much more interesting time, not necessarily better time. And I think I already said she goes to this like very wintry, icy region to do her research, and then at some point she is joined by her friend slash rival Wendell. And by now, halfway through the book, we have learned some things about Wendell. Their relationship is definitely changing a little bit. Right at the point where I'm at right now, they have started kind of a mission. It has turned into a little bit of a like missing person situation, I would say. So I'm interested to see how that will resolve. We also had a interesting scene with a tree where there might still be big repercussions from that. So I think I definitely enjoyed this book for the plot. I think it is very engaging, and while I'm currently in an area that is very warm and I'm right now listening to the waves at the beach. It's such a weird time to read this book. I don't know why I did that, but I am having fun. I will definitely continue on with that. And yeah, I'm glad that so far with this one, I understand the hype. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily there for the hype, but I'm definitely having a good time. And I'm not like the biggest fairy person. I always have to apologize to my booktube friend Kaat for that. I will link her channel down below, but she's always a little bit sad when I say that, but I just don't care about fairies that much. But I think the way that they're done in this book is definitely more intriguing. It does remind me a little bit of the way that Tolkien also talked about fairies, that they're, more not malicious necessarily. They have like this odd sense of humor, and I really like the way that Emily always says that you cannot understand the fairies. I think that is like a really good like way to describe what they are. They're not rational beings at all. So I definitely enjoyed that. Emily also made this little fairy friend, which is really sweet. And I am intrigued by her dog, because her dog does not leave footprints in the snow. So will we learn more about that? I don't know, but it's intriguing. And we're also always here for a cute animal companion, and this book is trying really hard to get me to be a dog person. So overall, I would say that this book so far is a fun time, a good time. I do like what is explored here. I think one negative thing I have heard before about this is that this deals also with the idea of changelings, and in the past this has been used to explain children that are on the autism spectrum, for example. So these were not seen as like human children, and obviously that's really, really harmful. And I think I have seen like criticism of this book because of that, and that this is not like really reflected in the story. I just wanted to mention that in case you don't want to read about that, which is absolutely fair. I had obviously completely forgotten about that again until it was brought up in the book, and then I remembered again that it was this book I had heard this about. I'm pretty sure I did. So yeah, just keep that in mind, that this kind of like history of the concept of a changeling is not really brought up in the book, and is not really reflected on critically or anything like that. That's definitely not great, but apart from that, I'm intrigued to keep on reading, and I'll update you when I finish the book. So I'm back home now, but right before I left my vacation, while I was waiting for the bus to take me to the airport, I finished reading Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries. Is that right? Oh, that title just kills me. So I have finished the book. I decided to give it 4 stars. I definitely had fun with this book. This was not like the perfect beach read, to be honest, because it just takes place on this like very cold island with lots of snow, and especially towards the end, it just gets even more cold and more snow. But it was still really fun to read, and I definitely do want to continue on with the series. So I have put both the second and the third book on my Libby like holds thingy, but we'll see how long it will take for me to actually get the books, because especially the third book is in very high demand right now. But yeah, it seems that you will be getting the series reading vlog after all. So talking about this first book, I definitely think that it just sets up the characters really well. I think that Wendell and whatever her Emily obviously that they're like very like well portrayed, like you get a feeling of who they are. I must say that I don't really feel the romance too much, just because of the way that it just happens very quickly, and these characters have known each other for a very long time, which we don't really see. So basically, the way that Wendell appears in the picture, he already seems to be kind of in love with Emily, and Emily is just oblivious the whole time, and it never really reaches the point where I could like really feel their feelings for each other. And I'm currently reading Thortard by T. Kingfisher, and with that romance, which has not a similar dynamic, but if I compare just the way that I feel their romance and their banter, if I compare that to Emily Wilde, it doesn't compare. I never felt that kind of like romance feelings, and yeah, it's just not a romance that like hit me in the gut, or that I just felt very deeply that these two people have like feelings for each other. I think they're cute, and I can definitely get along with it. But I think what really sold this one for me was the plot. I think it was like really fun to go on that adventure with these characters, and the whole like academic side made me also giggle a little bit. Now, I am currently on my academic sabbatical, so why am I reading books about academics? I don't know. It's a flaw in my personality, I guess. But still, like, especially the way it ends, it had like some snarky comments about like scientific like conferences and stuff and presentations, and I thought that was quite funny. So overall, I had like a really, really fun time with the plot, even if I didn't like fall head over heels for this romance story. But I'm also definitely intrigued to see how it develops in the second and third book, because so far nothing really has happened too much between the characters. Also because this is more of a historical setting, so they will not like start like making out somewhere in the shadows, because it wasn't done in that time period like that. I think there's still a lot potential to keep this series going forward. I'm definitely intrigued to see where it goes, but for what I liked in this first book as well is that the plot is well rounded. You don't need to continue on reading. I think that the story in itself is kind of told in this book, and I always really enjoy it when you have kind of an arc in a book, and it's not like just setting up stuff that happens later on or anything like that, or you end with like this big cliffhanger and like nothing is resolved in the first book. So I do appreciate that, and I think that it also makes for like an easy read. I can totally see myself like picking up the second book in a couple of weeks' time and be completely fine with that. I definitely have a lot of positives about this series, even though it's not like a new favorite. It definitely lived up to my expectations, the way that I thought I would feel about this book. So I'm definitely happy that I know my own taste, and I knew that there would be something in here that I could appreciate and I would have fun with. And I think that's the most important part. So I think that's what I'm going to say for the spoiler-free part. Next up, I want to go into a couple of spoilers, talk a little bit about the plot and how I felt about certain things. So if you have not read the book, then please use the chapters to jump ahead to my spoiler-free thoughts of the second book. But if you have read the book, let's just discuss a little bit. Okay, so spoilers ahead. I don't really have like a lot of things I feel I need to discuss with this book. I definitely had a fun time with this. I think there's not like a lot of like super exciting or surprising things that happen, but maybe just some little like twists that I did not see coming. So from early on in the book, we know that Emily suspects Wendell to be a fairy, and he ends up being one, obviously. And I didn't feel like that was like such a big surprise. I did, however, like that also her dog Shadow is a fairy, and I kind of like that. I also really like that at the end there, when Emily is going through Wendell's notes, there is like pictures he drew of a cat, and she's like, okay, this is like the most horrible cat. Like either he can't paint or like draw cats, or this is the most horrible cat. So I really hope we meet that cat in the sequels, because you know me, I'm a cat person. I think a dog can be cute in a story, but I live for the cats. So we'll see about that. I'm definitely ready to meet Wendell's horrible cat. So we do have that, and I really like the way that we explored some of the fairies in the story, especially this little one that is near the hot spring is so cute, and I really felt that when his little tree was burned down and then Wendell kind of replaced it, and he thought it was like the best thing in the world that this like high-born like fairy fixed this little tree. It was so cute, it was so adorable, and I really appreciated that. I already talked a little bit about the whole like changeling situation. I still think it was interesting, even though for me personally it felt like I had no read on the age of that child, because like while it was the changeling, it read like maybe an 8-year-old child or something, and then when the kid is brought back it was like 3 years old or something. I don't know, it just confused me a little bit with that. But I think that, yeah, the whole idea of how Emily solves these issues and how she always kind of reverts back to stories and storytelling and kind of like the truth behind the stories, I really enjoyed that. And it has kind of like its own magic to it, the way that these fairies have to revert back to like stories and the rules of stories. I really enjoyed the way that was integrated into the story. How many times can I say story in a row? But yeah, I felt like it was a very interesting perspective, and something that really made Emily feel like such a capable character, even though she never really sees herself like that. Like, she is interesting in the sense that on the one hand she's like very clear about, hey, I'm so good at my research and I have worked on this so hard. On the other side, she doesn't really see herself as like particularly capable, I would say, and it's just an interesting balance that is struck with her character there. I loved all of that. Then we get to the ending with this like winter king tree person, and I thought that was also very intriguing. Now, I did not love the whole like cutting her finger off situation. Like, that made me a little bit squeamish, let's be fair. But I think it was so interesting the way that she kind of then got stuck with him and he made this like whole palace. And I think that what I really appreciated about the ending and how it all played out is that on the one side we have these characters that band together to help Emily, even though she doesn't really consider that they might even want to help her. So she's like really surprised and maybe even in her way touched by that. But on the other side, Emily is also saving herself. So it's not like the situation where she suddenly loses all of her like abilities and then other people have to swoop in and save her. I thought it was like really well balanced with the way they have this whole plot, but then while it is happening, she realizes that this is not the way that the story is supposed to go, and then she is still interfering and changing it, so it actually ends up making sense for the story and working out. I thought that that was like really clever, and it takes away from this idea that you're just stuck and you have to be saved, that you also are part of the solution, that maybe you can't do it all by yourself, but it also doesn't mean you're just sitting around waiting for someone to come and save you. So I think the way that was like kind of interwoven, the outside help and her own abilities to save herself, was really well done. And it's like something that I just really love about a story. It's just very realistic in a way, because that's just how life works. You can't do everything yourself. Sometimes you need help, but it also doesn't mean that you don't need to do stuff yourself. So love that about the ending. The whole like marriage situation and the like proposal of Wendell and all of that, I don't really get it. Like I said in the spoiler-free part, I don't really feel the romance between the two. And so when Wendell proposed, I was like, where is this coming from? Especially as he has so many dalliances in the beginning of the book, and then he's like, yeah, but I want to marry this random ass person I have known for years. I don't feel it yet. And I'm intrigued to see how that develops in the following books, whether I will actually start feeling something. But I'm not a very like romance reader, so as long as there's still like characters and a plot that I'm interested in, I don't really mind if I don't love the romance. So we'll see. I'm intrigued to see how it just continues on. And then at the end I can't tell you whether this romance actually made me feel anything or not. I think that's where I will leave this off. I had a lot of fun with the first book. I'm now waiting for my haul to come in for the second one, so I will chat to you again when I'm halfway through that. So I'm now halfway through the second Emily Wilde book, The Map of the Otherlands. So I thought I'd give you a very quick update how things are going. So I can't really talk much about the plot of the second book because it relies on stuff you learn in the first book. But basically, we learned something about like one of the main characters that now sets more things into motion. It's basically some like bigger quest that was revealed in the first book that they're now going on. And to continue on in this quest, they go to the Alps. So they're now in Austria. At the beginning of the book, they're still in Cambridge, but then they travel to Austria and they are looking for something there. And while they are on this quest, Emily is also trying to write a kind of map book about like all the fairy kingdoms. So similar to the first book where she was writing her encyclopedia about all the different kinds of fae, now she is working on this map and about the different kingdoms and how you can reach them through the human world, like through those doors. So the doors are much more important in this book. We haven't really learned a lot about those in the first one, so there's definitely more like fairy lore to explore with this idea of the doors, what they look like, how you can find them. And so they go to this like very small village in the Alps to look for fairy doors there because they're kind of looking for something very specific that they think is there. And while they're doing that, they're also looking for some scholars who went missing many, many years ago. Like I think even hundreds of years ago, if I'm not mistaken, or at least decades ago. No, it's more like decades ago, I think. So they're also looking for these scholars because they think they found what they're now looking for, but something went wrong with that. So a lot of like running around in the Alps, like trying to figure out where that particular thing they're looking for might be. For this book, the pacing is a little bit interesting because now that I'm halfway through, I kind of feel like nothing has happened while everything moves very fast. So it's definitely a very weird experience. So for example, we start out in Cambridge. Very quickly, there is kind of an attack that is happening. So there's like danger and action and all of that. And so they decide to leave immediately for this trip to also like draw away kind of the danger situation. So they hop on a boat and they travel from Cambridge to the Alps, which like in other similar books that I've read takes up like multiple chapters. And here it's like, yeah, we're on a boat, we're on a train, we're there. So while like things happen like super fast, it also doesn't feel like there is like anything eventful happening. I don't know how to explain it, but it just feels a bit odd, like not in a bad way, just a little bit odd, like how so much is happening and at the same time it doesn't feel like anything's happening. And I'm also like, how am I already halfway through this book? Like nothing has really happened. That's like one thing I've just realized reading this book, that the pacing somehow throws me off a little bit, but it's not in a bad way. Like I'm not hating it. It's just different from like other books that I've read, I guess. We also have this like relationship thing still going on. I don't think that for now I feel more chemistry than I did in the first book. I just I always feel like we're like missing pieces of this relationship. It never really makes a lot of sense to me, like why these two characters are drawn to each other. And I don't feel like the first half of this book has given me any more like answers or made me feel their connection anymore. So I'm intrigued to see how that develops in the second half of this book now. I'm definitely more still intrigued by the whole like plot and the fairy lore and not the romance side of things, but I don't mind that. So I'm definitely looking forward to reading the rest of this book. I also read the first half of this during my Prague trip, which was very lovely. So yeah, I feel like I've had a very good reading experience and I'm glad to continue on with that today. So yesterday I finished reading Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. I still have trouble with these titles, but I very much enjoyed the book, so we're here to talk about it. And I have already said a little bit in my previous update, so I won't really like expand on the plot or anything to not give too much away, but I did have a very good time with the second book as well. I think I liked it just as much as I did the first book. There is definitely some like development in the romantic side of things that I still, like, as I said before, I just don't really buy the romantic aspects of these books, but that doesn't really matter to me because it's not like the main focus of the book, so there's always something to intrigue me, and the kind of romantic scenes between the characters are very short and not like there's not like a ton of them in the book, so it doesn't really bother me that I'm not like convinced of the like chemistry of these characters. I do like these characters in general. I think that they're very interesting to explore, especially with Wendell, because like there is a lot that we don't know about him. As in the first book, we do have one kind of chapter in this book that he wrote, so that's always quite interesting, but still doesn't give us like a ton of insight into him as a character. So I hope that we will get a little bit more of that in the third book, because there is like a clear hint of what is going to happen now at the end. So that would hopefully involve like just getting a bit of a clearer grasp on him, especially because of like things we know about him that maybe make things a little bit more like unpredictable, how things will turn out. I don't know. It's like very hard to talk about this without spoiling anything. But if you know, you know. So I'm intrigued. Definitely intrigued to see how that all ends up. So in the end, if I didn't say it already, I gave this one 4 stars as well. I think it is definitely like a fun romp. These books are quite short, so it's quite easy to squeeze them into like your reading plans. This one definitely had more of an autumnal feeling. It is set in autumn. You are going to the mountains, so we don't have as much snow. We also see some parts of the fairylands again, and those also feel more autumnal than what we saw in the first book. So overall, the vibe of this one has more of that autumnal feel. So I'm very intrigued to see where the last book lands with that, just because of how we left off with this one. Overall, just having like a good time, very interested in all of this going on with the fairies and stuff. I'm not like a big fairy person. I'm not like super interested in them, but I like it when they're done well, and I feel like with this one, it definitely it is done in a way that I find intriguing, with all of the different kinds that we see, and just their behavior is like very erratic in a way, but also sometimes like surprisingly sweet. So I'm having a good time with that. And last but not least, we do have kind of a twist at the end of this book that surprised me. It surprised me. So I'm intrigued to see how that will develop in the last book, but I'll have to wait until like the library loan comes around. I am on the wait list, but it's probably going to take a couple of weeks now. So I think that's all I'm gonna say for the spoiler-free part for this book. So if you have read Map of the Otherlands, let's quickly discuss some spoilers. And if you have not, then please use the chapters to jump to my spoiler-free thoughts on the final book. So with this one, I think the thing that surprised me the most was the queen. We do meet Wendell's stepmother, the queen, and I really was surprised that she is not Fae, like she is kind of like mixed blood. Her father was human and her mother was a fairy, and I found that very fascinating. I really did not see that coming, but I really liked the way it was explained, how like the fairies only ever think like in the moment, they don't really plan for the future, and that is something that humans do. And so it makes much more sense the way that this queen is going about everything, that she behaves more like a human than a fairy. So I thought that was such a fun, like interesting twist that I had not expected. So what we don't know right now is whether she is actually dead or whether she survived the poisoning. So I'm definitely intrigued to see whether we will actually meet her again. If we do, I'm very intrigued to see how that would go down. Like I really want her and Wendell to meet and to talk to each other, because that would be like very fascinating. I think that overall, I didn't expect there to be like so many fairy human couples, because we also see the queen's brother and his husband, who is also a human. So this seems to be kind of a more common thing at this court, which also like makes it more like acceptable, I guess, that Wendell and Emily will obviously end up together by the final book. We did have some like development in that regard. I don't know how I feel about it. Like this book has no spice. So it is implied that they spent a lovely night in a tent, but we don't see any of that. And I don't know. As I said, I'm just not really feeling the romantic vibes. Like Emily is just like, yeah, let's just do that now, and then it's like, what happens? I'm like, okay, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. I really like all the different creatures. Like we had this like, was it the Fuchszwerg? I don't know. Like they have all these like weird names, and this reminds me a little bit of the TV show Grimm, where they have like weird words that sound German but are not. So I would have to look up whether there is actually something like Fuchszwerge as like a mythological being, or whether the author made this one up. I actually don't know that. But yeah, those, like the description was very creepy, like with the kind of baby faces. But I like Snowbell. I loved him. He was so adorable. And then obviously we have the return of this other one, like what's his name? The one that lived in the tree in the first book, also so adorable with his bread all the time. Like I need a little fairy that brings me delicious bread, honestly. So I do like those. I think they're like so cute, and we already get a little bit of a glimpse of how some alliances might form for the last book at the end of this one, because they're like kind of planning out how to return now to Wendell's kingdom. So yeah, I'm definitely intrigued. I think it's like super cute. I'm ready to see more of that. I still don't know how I feel about Ariadne. She is the niece of Emily. I don't know. I didn't really have like a feeling towards her. I guess because like most of the time Emily is kind of ignoring her or finding her kind of annoying. You as a reader also kind of find her annoying most of the time when she is even mentioned. So I don't really have like feelings towards her, and I also don't know if she will actually show up in the last book. So I don't know if this was like something we really needed in this book. I'm not always a fan of like kids or teenagers in stories. It like really depends on what the story is trying to do with it. But yeah, I really didn't need her. I liked all the aspects with like the other professor, I think Rose. I kind of liked how he and Emily just represent like different times and different types of research, and how they often butt heads, but if they work together they're actually like really good. So yeah, I had a fun time with that. So I'm really intrigued to see where the last book will go. And yeah, we will find that out together in a second. Like for you, it's a second. I have to wait weeks for that. So I'm now halfway through the third Emily Wilde book, Emily Wilde and the Compendium of Lost Tales. I wanted to give you a quick update and let you know how I feel about the book so far. Now, this one does feel a little bit more, I don't know, I don't want to say sad, but in a way a little bit sadder than the first two books. The first two were like pure adventure. I feel like in this one we do have much higher stakes, and because of that there's also a little bit more of a melancholy feeling to the book. It is very hard to describe, but I think that because of what's going on, we feel this kind of threat, but also Emily is still kind of struggling with her feelings about Wendell, and also just like the overall idea of, you know, this relationship and what it means in the long run. So it definitely, as I said, has quite high stakes, I feel like, compared to the other two. And we do have more of a villain of the story. Because of that, it just feels a bit different. Also, we have a very different setting, because in this one we are actually mostly in the fairy realm, but we do also make some excursions to Ireland. And this one is set in the winter again. It definitely feels like cold, but because we are not so much in the real world, I wouldn't say it feels like such a cold winter read like the first one did. The first one was very much like Icelandic cold, like snow and ice everywhere. This one is more like Ireland winter, where, you know, it might get cold, but mostly the weather is just kind of nasty. And then, yeah, it has that feeling, like more of this like foresty feeling. Definitely still a great read for like autumn and winter. So yeah, I guess what I like about this book, as at least in the first half of it, is that we do see a lot of like these side characters again that we had in the first and the second book. It does feel like Emily now has a little bit of a like safety net in these side characters, people who care about her, people who want to support her, but also people who are concerned about her and worried and kind of want to talk to her about it and just want her to be safe and to make the best choice for her life. So I think in that regard, Emily as a character hasn't changed so very much, but because of the people around her changing so much, she definitely has to deal with like new stuff that she is still like trying to navigate and is still not super like good at navigating. However, because these people care about her so much, it doesn't go wrong anymore, if you know what I mean. Like, they know what they can expect from Emily, and they're not confused or confounded by her way of like dealing with things. So I think that's very lovely to see, and I'm definitely hopeful that in the second half of this book we will get maybe even a little bit more of that. And I think it's just a nice like development of the story that we see in the third book. So I actually have quite high hopes that this third book will work really well for me in the context of the series. I think that at least for this first half, we see that Emily is still kind of fighting her fights with kind of like her strength, and that's something I also really love about stories like this, is when a character has like very clear strengths and using them for herself and for the things that are important to her. So yeah, I feel like this book is doing a lot like right for me, and it's just such a comforting read, but also intriguing because I definitely want to see how it all ends. Now, one thing I have to criticize, we do have a cat in the story now. Granted, it's not really a cat, it's a fairy cat. However, there is this one moment where this cat behaves like a dog. And I'm like, I don't think Heather Fawcett is a cat person. I think she's a dog person. And this morning I actually got a message from my friend Jess. I will link her channel down below. And she sent me the kind of like announcement for the new Heather Fawcett book, which is a 1920s cozy cat book. It's like cozy fantasy with cats, 1920s inspired. And like, I am super excited for that. But if she writes cats like she did in that one scene, I'm concerned. So I really hope she spends some time with some cats, and hopefully cats that didn't grow up thinking they were dogs, because I know cats like that and I know they can be weird. But you know, this is just for funsies. I'm not serious about this. But the scene was kind of like weird for a cat. But yeah, I'm very intrigued to read the rest of this book now. So I think that's just what I'm gonna do. And then I'll let you know how it goes. Okay, so yesterday I finished reading the final Emily Wilde book, and we are here to close off this reading vlog. I had a really good time with this book. It was actually kind of surprising. There were quite a few things that I did not see coming. I will talk about that in a little spoiler section in a second. But yeah, this book definitely managed to surprise me, to kind of play with my expectations, especially because this series is so much built upon the idea of stories and patterns in stories that you think you kind of know how things are going to go, but then it's also about kind of subverting these patterns. So it does that, and it's like fantastic. I had a really good time with this. I gave this final book 4 stars, as I did all the books, but this might actually be my favorite one. And I think that's a little bit uncommon. I think a lot of people didn't really love this final book, which, yeah, I don't know why. I had such a good time with it. I think that the plot was very intriguing. The look at the world was great. I think we got to explore a lot of like interesting things. We even have a little bit of Anne Boleyn thrown into the story there. So yeah, there's a lot of like fun stuff that you can like look at, and these books are just so quick to read and like just really, I don't know, like I don't feel like I did like a deep dive into these stories, but I felt like it was just such a good time. It was so enjoyable to read these books. And so while this is not going to be like a new favorite series, I definitely am looking forward to whatever Heather Fawcett is doing next. And I think I said it in my last update. I'm not quite sure. Maybe I said it in the vlog update, but I have seen that her next book is going to be like a cozy cat magic situation, and I'm ready for that. However, the way that she writes cats, a little bit troubling. Like there is this one scene where I was like, has Heather Fawcett ever interacted with a cat? Because the cat in that book did something very weird. I'm definitely excited to explore her next stories. I think this could definitely be an author for me. I think with this one, I also felt the romance a tiny little bit more. I definitely think that we have some like scenes that, yeah, just made me feel a little bit more. Still, I think I like these characters separate more than I like them together. However, yeah, it's just, I had a good time. I had a good time. What can I say? I would recommend it. Now, keep in mind, even though this has romance, I would still say this is a fantasy story, and there's no smut in it, like no spice at all. This is all like fade to black, which I don't have any issues with. I am fine with that. I'm fine either way if the story is compelling and the fantasy elements are compelling for me, because I am a fantasy reader. Like there can be romance, but I need a good fantasy story to keep me, you know, hooked in. I think that's all I'm gonna say for this series. I had a great time. I'm very happy that we got to do this little like extra series reading vlog that is a surprise, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching it. So if you have read the whole series, I want to talk a little bit in spoilers with you in a second, but if you have not read the final book of the series yet, thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a fun time as I did while I was reading the books, and I hope to see you on my channel again soon. But for everyone who has read this final book, let's discuss a little bit more in detail. So I really enjoyed that in this final book we do spend a good amount of time in the fairy kingdom, and I think that is something people have criticized about the second book, because they thought the second book would already be set more in the fae world. However, we do it now, and I think we have like a good time exploring this world. The idea with these trees that have like a ton of eyes, for example, is like so weird and unsettling, but at the same time it like really fits into the book in a way which I really enjoyed. I liked the idea with like the massive like fairy horses and then these like foxes that our main character Emily is riding around, and I just really liked that look into the world, just exploring what it is like a little bit. And I just really had a good time with like the whimsy and the like nonsensicalness of it. I think that Wendell gifting Emily this little cottage in the human world where she can always kind of escape to is so sweet. It was such a cute idea, and it just, I really like Wendell, but that just made my heart beat a little bit faster for him. He is such a weird character, but I think in this book, we finally get such a well-rounded look at all of his character, which I really enjoyed. Like, you see him as this, like, person who never wants to get up in the morning, which, like, relatable. But you also see him as his, like, king version. You see him as his, like, kind of, like, vengeful fae version. And you see him like sacrificing himself for his realm, which I thought, like, that whole scene like so surprised me, the way that it happened so quickly. And obviously when you read this, and this is more of a cozier fantasy, you know there will be a way that Emily will bring him back, even though I thought this was more of a like Orpheus moment, when in reality it really wasn't. Everything that happened, like with them finding the secret island, and everything after that was like such a surprise to me. I was like really always off with what I thought would happen next. And I absolutely love that, because it means that Heather Fawcett did something there that felt new and fresh to me, and that surprised me in the very best ways. And I really loved that. Like the whole situation with like Shadow going into this like between like life and death realm and bringing Wendell back, and then him having like brought also back his stepmom, and then her being sent into the whale, and then Emily going into the whale, and it was just all very surprising to me. I really did not see it coming. And again, I just really love how Emily has this strength of like her stories, her knowledge, and how she uses it throughout this book. I really appreciate, like, that's something that doesn't really change about her throughout these books, is how she always is researching and thinking about stuff and figuring things out, and in the end, like, winning with this strategy. I really love that. I love Emily. I love Wendell. I love that we get to see so many of the side characters again. Like, we get this young couple from the first book because they temporarily move into Emily's cottage to kind of welcome her there. And we also get the niece and the other professor from the second book again, and they help. And then we get even more like side characters in this like fairy realm with like this Callum guy, however that name is pronounced. I really liked him. I liked his husband. Like, Wendell's uncle is such an intriguing character, and there's this moment where he talks about how like everything in life just becomes really boring except for being in love. And that was just so, oh, I love that. I love that. And yeah, it's like he represents like this very different kind of fairy because he has been alive for such a long time, and he has seen like kings and queens come and go, and he has fought battles and all of that. So he doesn't really care all that much, and I think that is just like a fairy archetype that I really appreciate in stories. So I had a lot of fun with these side characters, even though sometimes I would have liked to see even more of them, because this is written in this diary style. We always stay in Emily's head, and sometimes it would have been interesting to maybe break out of that a little bit and see a little bit more about these side characters as well.
Oh, baby, I'm sorry.
So as I said with the cat thing, I just wanted to elaborate on that like for a second, because there is this scene where Wendell is dead, I think, and the cat is like, she's like really, really mourning for him. And there is this moment when she turns onto her bag and lets Emily pet her tummy, and I'm like, this is not a cat, that is a dog. A cat will not. Like, there is cats who would allow that. It's like the minority. So not quite sure how convincing that cat behavior was to me. Apart from that, I loved the fairy cat. She was so fierce and demanding and cruel, and I loved it. I have my little menace, so I always love a little cat menace in a book. And I also loved Shadow, and the whole like ending when it talks about how, you know, you can't really change aging, but that they have this like little magical trick to at least help him like live with his illness that he developed. And it's just, it was so heartbreaking, and I'm like really glad that it talked about how he still has a few good years in him, because like, yeah, as someone who tends to adopt older cats, this feeling of like your pet slowly aging and developing some illnesses and stuff like that, it's just always so heartbreaking. And yeah, so I think if you're a dog lover, you're gonna love this story. So overall, I just really, really had a good time. I would definitely recommend you pick this up. I would say probably read it in winter time, because most of this is set during the winter, even though the fairy realm feels a little bit more autumnal because it is like this foresty realm. Reading this throughout the summer was a choice. I didn't regret it, but I think it could be even more atmospheric when it's like actually cold outside and you're snuggling in your living room and reading these books. I hope you had a fun time watching this vlog. I hope it didn't turn out too long. I know I tend to babble, but I think we're at the end, and I hope you take my advice. I hope you read this book if you haven't yet, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Bye!